General Ariel. How about quad? What's a quad?
Here.
What's that? Four-sided shape, yeah, quadrilateral. Okay. And you need to take some good notes on this because in math they get kind of specific as to what the names of these specific four-sided shapes are. And a couple of them you don't hear very often, so you kind of need to take note of that. The first one they say is a four-sided shape that has no parallel sides. Okay, no parallel sides. You don't deal very often with something like that because it's just a goofy looking shape. Looks something like you can draw it any way you want as long as no two sides are parallel. Okay, this thing is called a trapezium. Probably not the best one. Might have to get rid of it. A trapezium has no parallel sides. No parallel sides. In other words, this is not parallel, that's not parallel, that's not parallel, that's not parallel. Just has four sides, no real rhyme or reason. Now one that does have two parallel sides, which means this, let's say these two sides were parallel, okay, or one set of parallel sides would be what, everybody? One set of parallel sides is, DJ? It is a trapezoid. Trapezoid. Now a couple that we do know, something that has two sets of parallel sides. Or it would look like this. You got this side that's parallel, this side that's parallel, this is parallel, that's parallel. Those are, Grace?
Parallelogram.
It is a parallelogram. Okay. Then, if you have a four-sided shape that has all equal sides, okay, actually the thing that I just drew is pretty close to it too. But this one has to have all equal sides. This side equals this side equals this side. Anytime you see something that has like those hash marks in it, if each side has a hash mark, they're just trying to tell you that those sides are all equal. All equal sides is a, I don't want that one. Michael?
Square.
It is not. That is not a square. Just so you know. Kels?
Orange.
It is an orange. Yep. A rhombus. A rhombus. Now, what you have to get used to here, children, is this. Are all the sides parallel on this rhombus? Yes, they are. So this is also, just because it's one doesn't mean it can't be another thing. Okay, this is a specific kind of parallelogram, but it is also a parallelogram. Okay, so you have to get used to the exact definitions here. Another quadrilateral that you are very much familiar with. Almost had it. Almost had it again. I'm going to go over here.
Magic. Witchcraft.
A quadrilateral that has four right angles, which looks like this, is, yes, a rectangle. And then the quadrilateral that has 4 right angles and 4 equal sides is what most people are thinking on some of those other ones.
Michael.
That thing is a square. But again, you need those, it doesn't write very well over there, so that's not even square. Okay, but you have to get used to the exact definition, because a square, if I drew you this shape and I said, give me all the names that apply to it, a square is a rectangle, a square is a rhombus, a square is a parallelogram. A square can never be this because the definition of that is it can only have 2 sides that are parallel, not all 4. This has all 4 sides that are parallel. Okay, so this, you always give the most specific. If they don't ask to give all of them, you always give the most specific. Okay? So you just have to be aware of their exact definitions, which we have over here anytime you're asked a question. Christine?
How would the square be a parallelogram? Because it doesn't have 4 right angles. 2 sets of parallels.
No, the only thing that makes something a parallelogram is that it has 2 sets of parallel sides, and a square does. Okay? Now, the thing you're thinking about is this. Every square is a parallelogram, but not every parallelogram is a square. You can draw a parallelogram that's not a square, but you can't draw a square that's not a parallelogram. Right? Just like me saying this, all the girls in here are 6th graders, but not all the 6th graders in here are girls.
Oh, are you sure?
Debatable I was. Grace?
So isn't a rhombus like a diamond?
A rhombus is a diamond, but it doesn't have to be, because a rhombus deals nothing with angles, it's just about sides. A square is a rhombus. Okay? Generally speaking, when somebody says draw a rhombus, Kelvin, that would mean that it would be a diamond shape. Okay? But it doesn't have to be. We have to go by the exact definition in math. You can't just say, well, that's not what I think. Okay? It has to be the exact definition of that sort of thing. So if you're given a shape that looks like this, you know, if they give you this shape and they say, list all the names that apply to it, yes, most specifically, this is a rectangle, but it is also a, Jacob, parallelogram. And if they don't tell you, it is also a quadrilateral. Not a rhombus because it doesn't have 4 equal sides. Quadrilateral. All of those technically apply to it. If you're given this shape here, these have those 4 sides, and they're not. If there's no hash marks, it don't mean it doesn't have any equal sides. That shape is a parallelogram. Okay. Math people get pretty particular about their shapes and what you can call this, that, and the other things. How about this? The book will ask you if this is true or not. Are all parallelograms rectangles? Are all parallelograms are rectangles true or false? All parallelograms are rectangles. True or false? Now, the only thing you have to do is be able to draw a parallelogram that's not a rectangle, and this would be false. Can you draw a parallelogram that's not a rectangle? Sammy? And what would it look like? Exactly, a parallelogram that looks like this. Now, if I flipped it around and said, are all rectangles parallelograms? Then the answer would be true, because there's no rectangle that you can draw that doesn't have 2 sets of parallel lines. You know, and the same thing is true with this. Is this, if I put these little marks on here, is this a rectangle? Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah.
What's the definition of a rectangle? 4 right angles. It doesn't matter how big the sides are or that they're equal. All squares are also rectangles. Can you draw a rectangle that's not a square? Yes. Right here. Can I draw a square that's not a rectangle? No, because squares are always going to have 4 right angles. So it gets a little confusing, or a lot confusing at times, but you just have to take the terms back. Here.
On our papers, are they going to ask us to draw?
You know, a lot of times what they'll ask you to do is they'll say draw 2 horizontal parallel or lines, and then they'll say draw another set of parallel lines that are perpendicular to those 2. And then they'll say the shape that's formed by the intersection of those is what shape? What names would apply to that? Kelsey, it's a rectangle, but it is also a, no, it doesn't have to be a square. It is also a parallelogram. And a quadrilateral if they are. Alright, you can go.